Yo, what up, Street Dogs? There, Kim. All right, so some thoughts on male beauty. So, whenever I talk about these videos, I think it's kind of useful for me to just talk from a male perspective because I'm not a woman, so I can't speak from a female perspective. But you know, I can speak from a male perspective, and I can speak from my own perspective, which is the ultimate perspective. So, where do we typically go wrong? We typically go wrong when we put too much credence or give too much weight to other people's opinion rather than asking ourselves for our own opinion. Now, this is a very important distinction because everyone's trying to tell you what to think, what to not think, how to behave, how not to behave, and so forth. And truth be told, for myself at least, it gets very suffocating, confusing, and kind of frustrating in the sense that everyone's always trying to tell me what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. And whenever I do something right and good, people blame me for it. Whenever I do something wrong, people blame me for it. So now I'm just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do me. But anyways, so my notions of male beauty, virtue, aesthetics, and stuff like that is very simple. My personal ideal for myself and whatever is strength, courage, bravery, elegance, steadfastness, focus, kind of like a stoic Spartan ideal where it's like we're kind of strong, big, muscular, physically powerful, we're not petty, we don't, you know, mentally or verbally abuse women, and for the most part, like, I think what it means to be a virtuous man is like, so, you know, obviously there's a lot of guys who are like, you know, sexist or whatever, and I think the big problem is that so many lesser men out there try to superimpose onto women their ideal for them. But I'm like, yo, just like, no, you just focus on building yourself and let other women or let other people be as they can be too. And also, I think the typical thing, which is kind of bad, is that men try to bully women, and at least like in general, like from a physiological perspective, obviously men are typically bigger and stronger and physically more powerful than women. So even with domestic abuse, you know, obviously it's possible for there to be female domestic abuse towards a man, but typically it's male on women. Why? Because typically men are bigger, have more muscle mass, and are stronger. But once again, it's all subjective, because if you took the world's best UFC fighter, female, and took her against the average male, obviously she would kick his ass. So these things are all very subjective, but at the same time, if you took the world's best UFC fighter and pitted it against the world's best UFC female fighter, obviously it would be no contest. Yo, check out these ducks. I think that's the female one and that's the male one. So there's obviously some sort of like dimorphism, that the female ones look different than the male ones and stuff like that. Now, this is where kind of like a lot of modern thinking is kind of like a little bit weird or bizarre to me. Is like, men are trying to convince women to act and be a certain way. Women are trying to act and treat men to be and act a certain way. And it's kind of weird because people should just kind of like let everyone be themselves and allow for mutual tolerance and stuff like that. And also I think that there shouldn't be any sort of repression, restrictions on either parties. And how does that manifest? So I'm lucky enough that I live in America. I don't know where you're from or you're watching this, but for myself, I mean, obviously besides killing people and looting and stuff like that, it's like I have freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want, I can think whatever I want, and there's going to be no thought police or totalitarian government to stop me and get in my way, very fortunately. Now, this is where social media is also a little bit tricky too, because if you upload stuff to Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, there is actually no freedom of speech in the sense that if whatever you say doesn't follow community guidelines, which is like sexually lewd, inappropriate, blah blah, you can't upload it. But fortunately, if you're on your own website, I recommend using like bluehost.com, installing wordpress.org, then you could actually publish anything you want to your website that you want, whether it's sexual, lewd or not, or inappropriate. It's up to you. So simply put, websites are the future. And now my personal thoughts on this matter is that we individuals, we kind of need to dictate our own morals and ethics and our own ideals for ourselves. So for myself, I personally aspire to become the most epic man possible. Now, what does being an epic man to me mean? It means being strong for myself, for others, for Cindy, for my family, and to perhaps like set a good example or become a good role model. And for me to not complain, to not be bitter, and to know that like in some ways my life doesn't belong to me in the sense that I'm alive, and I just kind of see myself ultimately more as like a tool or an instrument towards knowledge, human empowerment, whatever. And I treat myself like kind of like an N of one life experiment, because what I do is not a right or wrong, it's just who I am, it's how I think. So the goal in life isn't for you to become someone else. The goal is for you to become more of what you desire to become, and to not allow yourself to get bullied by others. Now, once again, I think, if you're a guy or a girl or whatever you identify yourself as, you could become whatever you want, but certainly there is no downside for either gender or anyone to become stronger. So like a simple test of strength, like how many push-ups can you do, how much can you squat, how much can you bench, how much can you deadlift, how many chin-ups can you do, stuff like that. And once again, these things is like, there's really no downside to anybody becoming stronger. So like, I was even on YouTube, I saw like, there's like a CrossFit female fitness person who did a strict muscle up, and I'm like, yo, that's hell of impressive. And there's some girls, I'm sure they're juicing and stuff like that too, but they could deadlift over like 550 pounds, which is like 100 pounds more than my max, which is 455 pounds. And so also like notions of beauty for myself is I'm interested in, increasing muscle mass, decreasing body fat percentage. And so certainly there's a physiological benefit to that, and there's really no downside to having more muscle mass and having less body fat percentage. And it seems like in a general basis for men around 10% is good, women around 20%. Any more or less than that, not that big of a deal, but that's kind of like the optimal range we're looking for. And not only that, but yeah, to indefinitely get more muscle mass, certainly a good thing. And obviously doing it without steroids, human growth hormones, baby stem juice, stem cell juices, even protein powder and supplements, I'm actually like highly suspicious. My only steroids is eating meat. Drinking lots of black coffee is my supplement, and drinking a lot of water seems like my personal thing. So yeah, so I think moving forward, it's important for you to dictate your own personal ideals of your own aesthetics. Look at a lot of old school statues to see what ideal beauty was in the past, and know that in this game of life, you could do whatever you want to do, but transform your body into its own work of art.